Good afternoon, everyone, online viewers and students present here. Today is the third day of our semester one, season one presentation, and students will present their topics related to the romantic age. In the morning session, also students gave very interesting presentation on the same, we can say, the paper, the romantic age. So let's have a look at the topics of the students. So, first, Nidhi Pandya will present on Romanticism and contemporary criticism, the Black Marxist, then the Manisha, Courtship and Marriage Economics, Pride and Prejudice, and the Market Matrimony. Radhika Mehta will be presenting on Argue, how would Austen view social media and online reputation? Sandhya will present on marriage as a marketplace, class, money, and morality in Austen's social vision. Sanjay on emotional and social relationship in Pride and Prejudice. Siddharth and Chauhan will present on marriage, media, and misogyny. What Austen and the Romantics tell us about modern and gender politics. SIDDHIBA GOHIL on constraining feminine ideals, a comparative study of Pride and Prejudice and Jane Eyre. VANITABEN BARAIYA on a marriage for a love or a convenience in Pride and Prejudice, a feminist and social perspective. GRISHMA RAVAL on the Doppelgänger's motif, Victor and the creature as a reflections of the divided self. KRUTIBEN will present on the speak of creation, factors that inspired Mary Shelley to write Frankenstein. Priyanka Nakrani will be presenting on the monster within, psychology and identity in Frankenstein. Siddharth G. Chauhan on the monster as a mirror of human nature. Mittal Halaya on imagination and supernatural in Coleridge poetry. Priya Rathod on romanticism and the cult of nature, Wordsworth versus Coleridge. Mulraj C. Gohil on the poetic proof, how Keats' diction in the Ode on Indolence embodies negative capability. And the last one is that Sagar Chawda on without irritable reaching kids and negative capability. So these are the topics that our students will present. So let's start with the first presentations, and for that I would like to invite Nidhi Pandya. Hello, am I audible?
So hello everyone, myself Nidhi Pandya. Good afternoon to all. Today's paper number 103 on the romantic age. My topic of this presentation is the romanticism and the contemporary criticism, Black Matrix. These are my academic details and presentation details. These are a table of contents. These are my research question and the hypothesis. So my research question upon this presentation is that how does William Black utilize the hybridity of his artistic media to create a powerful integrated critique of the 18th century politics and the conventional criticism? Now, what is the hypothesis? That the Black's unique combined art, mixing poems and pictures using a special printing process, is a revolutionary political tool. It was designed to actively fight against the powerful rulers and the traditional art rules by forcing the audience to think for themselves and to question everything they see. So, the introduction, the romantic context, and the imagination over the imitation. First of all, to understand Black, we must first situate him within the Romantic Revolution. This era saw a dramatic shift where the art was valued for its expression of the inner self, not its imitation. So the focus on the individual imagination was revolutionary and providing the philosophical and gradual and the groundwork for Black to develop his radical and the revolutionary visionary critique of the establishing the order. Now the Black's radical romanticism, the prophet of the decent. Now Black's radicalism must be viewed as an extreme reaction to the Enlightenment, which was Enlightenment. It was the age of reason, neoclassicism. Unlike some of his contemporaries who only follow and embrace the nature, Black focused on the comparing the repressive of the reason of the ruling powers. His works directly engages with the fallout of the French Revolution. Now, deserting his voice, using his art to build a new personal and a profound anti-establishment mythology to achieve a genuine freedom. Now, this was the political and the prophetic response. Now, media as a self-publishing as a political power. Blacks illuminated printing, an original technique that perfectly combined poetic text and the decorative elements and the full pictures into one work. Now, it's not a simply decorative, but it is a radical statement about the media control. Now, by physically uniting and the poetry and the painting, Black refused to let this message be separated or diluted by the critics. Now, this method, a kind of a self-publishing, allowed him to disseminate his revolutionary ideas directly and setting a precedent for artists controlling their message in any medium. Now, politics as a revolutionary vision in the marriage of heaven and hell, which is his work. Now, the marriage of heaven and hell is a Black's most direct critique and the political work. Now, by challenging the voice of the devil, he subverts that the repressive structure of both church and the state. By heaven and hell, he says they are comparative to the church and the state. The message is simple: the true life is found in energy, desire, and the imagination, not in a passive obedience to the oppressive reason often which are seen into the works. This vision remains as powerful metaphor for challenging all the forms of systematic control of today. Now, the prophecy and the crisis as an American prophecy. In a work like American a prophecy, Black moves beyond simple political reporting into a realm of the mythic prophecy. He shows that political struggles are fundamentally spiritual and battles against the perspective of eternal forces. Now, these approaches makes his property immediately relevant, not just historically. It is a call to arm for the imagination, reminding us that fighting for the systematic operation requires both political union and the action and the visionary revolution of our own minds. Now, the rejecting passive consumption or active reader. Now, Black's relationship with his audience is a key piece of his critical practice. He disliked the idea of passive consumption. He seeing it as another form of political mental slavery. By making his art difficult and unique, he forces reader to step up and become an interpreter, not just a reader master. He says that it requires both of that, mirroring the necessary effort required for the true freedom and the lesson of a complex media of the landscape. Now, the poetry and the painting, the unified critique. Black shows that his images and his texts conflict or harmonize is a sophisticated critical strategy. When you look at his illuminated plates, the visual component doesn't just decorate the poems, but also shows that how the moral and the politics are related and how corrupted. Now, these are the image which shows the road of access leads to the palace of the wisdom. The black in the critical canon challenging the rules. Now, the black difficulty being a fit nearly into the romantic canon because he was into where the everyone is embracing the nature and he is only focusing on how to balance the romanticism and the neoclassical age. Now, this what happened into his work, especially concerning the non-traditional media. Now, painting and criticism against the stuffy at rules. Black's painting is just as critically charged as his poetry. By avoiding the rigid rules of neoclassical, he has fighting the philosophical under underpinnings of his oppressive society. Now he only says that do not just copy but interpret everything you see, not just what it is but how it should be. He says that. And now the conclusion, that ultimately Black's genius lies in his synthesis. He proved that poetry, painting, and politics is just to create a single powerful argument against the political and the social justice. He was just want to say that his legacy challenges us today in an age that's saturated with the digital media to question who controls all of this message, how we can use this and in the combined arts form that generate meaningful political and the critical dissent. This was the idea of this presentation. Now the learning outcomes, that I gain understanding of how the Black's illuminated printing shows us that just to interpret everything, not just to read. Now his rejection of the censorship and the commercial control. And I also learned that his visionary work connect imagination within the moral and political freedom and the redefining the romantic creativity within the visionary perception, he rather than the perceived consumption. I realized that Black's challenge to neoclassical rationalism and later critical rediscovery position him as a precursor to the modern multimedia and the interdisciplinary art. Now, these are my references. These are the key points throughout my presentation when you can find everything into brief. Thank you, everyone. Now, questions are welcomed.
Hello. My question is, how did Blake combine art and activism?
So the answer is that though Black has seen as a revolutionary vision, but he wants to say that within his work, like the songs of innocence and the experience, he tells about the slavery and the child labor. By showing this, he introduced some social weaknesses and throughout ourselves also. He shows that how the industrialism and the how the world is out there. His emotional simplicity inspired empathy. And what today's media, as the social media, TikTok and Instagram, when we see a emotional video, we also get emotional. That is what Black has also done that with combining the art and activism. This will be my question answer.
My question is that what is Blake's legacy for artists in algorithmic age?
So the Black's prophetic artist challenges to modern media or the creators would be that do moral things and give moral things, not just be a producer of the content. Be moral one and interpret everything. He just do not say everything to the container, but also to reader that you should not only read but should also interpret what you are seeing and what you are reading. And this will impact upon the political culture and the technology, and they will gain more attention and knowledge about everything they want to know. So thank you, this is from my side.
Hello everyone, myself Mansi MAKWANA, and today my presentation topic is Courtship and Marriage Economics, Pride and Prejudice, and the Market of Matrimony. These are my academic and presentation details. These are table of contents, and these are my research question and the hypothesis. So my research question is, how do wealth, social status, and gender roles influence marriage decisions in Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice? And to what extent do characters navigate the tension between romantic desire and economic necessity? The hypothesis is, in Pride and Prejudice, marriage decisions are strongly influenced by economic and social considerations, but Austen demonstrated personal choice, mutual respect, and intellectual compatibility can challenge societal norms, allowing characters like Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy to prioritize love alongside financial security. Then move to introduction. Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice masterfully examines the interaction of love, economics, and social hierarchy in 19th century England. Through sharp irony and realistic characterizations, the novel exposes how wealth and class structure dictate personal relationships and shape notions of virtue, worth, and desire. Then, Regency England and marriage. Jane Austen depicts marriage as strategy, social pressure, and also for women, financial independence were initially for marriage. Then, marriage as an economical institutions, where marriage as a market in Regency England, marriage was often treated like a marketplace where financial resources, social rank, and family connections were negotiated and exchanged. Then, family alliance. Families actively sought strategies partnership to secure property, preserve wealth, and enhance social standing. Then economic and social negotiations, dowries, inheritance, and social connections were central to the process. Then Austen's insight in Pride and Prejudice. Through her narrative, Austen critiques the economic underpinning of marriage, showing how societal expectations often force individuals. Then Elizabeth Bennet's perspective. Jane Austen depicts Elizabeth as and values love and respect, rejects economics advantage, where he rejects Mr. Collins as well as Mr. Darcy. Then exercise personal agency, then balances principles and affections and challenges social norms. Then Mr. Darcy, who depicts as a wealthy person and handsome. Darcy's status shows how economic and social capital shape the relationships and provide authority in society. Then move to gender and power dynamics, where limited options for women in Regency England. Women had a few options or career for property rights, making marriage the primary means of financial and social security. Then economic dependence. Women's choices in courtship and marriage were largely shaped by economic necessity, forcing them to prioritize security over personal preferences. Power imbalance and societal expectation. So, women were expected to marry advantageously, and deviation from these norms often risk social marginalization and vulnerability. Then social pride and matrimony. Social pride and class consciousness. In Regency England, social pride and class consciousness often complicated marriage negotiations. The tension between choice and hierarchy. This tension between personal choice and social hierarchy highlights how pride and reputation act as barriers of romantic unions. Then contemporary relevance, ongoing study of marriage economics. The economic and social aspects of marriage explored in Pride and Prejudice continue to be analyzed in sociology and gender studies. showing how financial consideration influence relationships. Then relevance of Austen's insights. Austen's observation about wealth, social status, and gender roles remain applicable today. Then interplay of law and economics and cultural and academic impact. These are my learning outcomes of this presentation and conclusion. Critique of social economic constraints, Pride and Prejudice exposes the impact of wealth, inheritance, and social status on marriage decisions, showing that societal expectations often dictated personal choices. These are my references, and thank you. Now questions are welcome.
So my question is to you that how do today's relationship show both love and money needs like in Pride and Prejudice?
Today people want love, but they also care about money for a safe future, like Darcy and Elizabeth did in Pride and Prejudice. Couples try to couples try to have both feelings and stability. Another one.
My question is, how are social media and dating apps like the marriage market in Pride and Prejudice?
So on social media and dating apps, people show their bedside to find partners, like in Austen's time, looks, reputation, and lifestyle still matters in choosing who to be with. So thank you. This is from my side.
Am I audible? Hello everyone, myself Radhika Mehta. Hello everyone, myself Radhika Mehta, and today I will represent the topic of Argue Jane Austen in the Digital Age, Social Media and Online Reputation. So this is about the book, and these are my academic information and presentation details, table of content. And now let's move on research question and hypothesis. The research question is, how would the social philosophy and narrative techniques of Jane Austen critique or describe the dynamics of social media and the management of online reputation in the 21st century? So the hypothesis is, Jane Austen would view social media with a mixture of amusement and profound anxiety, recognizing its efficiency as a vehicle for essential communication but primarily fearing its power to instantly ruin a carefully constructed reputation due to its lack of editorial control and the speed of digital courtship. So let's move on introduction and topic overview. The topic overview is examining the foundational social mechanisms like gossip, courtship, reputation management in Jane Austen's 19th century novel through the lens of modern digital platforms. Now, core arguments is Austen's key themes, specifically the rapid spread of information, the uh, vulnerability of reputations, and the scrutiny of social status are not obsolete but are amplified and transformed by social media. So, the key contents Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, and EMA are studies in public perception and private conduct. Now let's move on the content, the digital marathon. Austen reputation economy. A reputation once lost is often irrecoverable. Example like the Bennet sisters' precarious positions. So social media parallels and permanent record. Every post, comment, or like is a public declaration analogous to a published social errors. Scrutiny, sorry, scrutiny. Online followers act as an ever-present judgmental society, like Lady Catherine de Bourgh, but everywhere. The power of the post, a scandalous story becomes lies. Lydia's fight is now disseminated via viral post rather than a circulated letter or local gossip. So now let's move on gossip and letters versus DMs threads. Regency communications, formal often mediated by letters, allowing time for reflection and correction, Mr. Darcy explanatory letters. So digital communication, the speed of scandals, gossip, immediate, unfiltered, and potentially anonymous. The speed of a thread mirror the rapid, breathless nature of drawing room scandals. Formal versus casual. Letters require thought, posts are impulsive. Austen would abhor the lack of deliberation before public pronouncements. And the last one is private versus public. Direct message, as we know that DM are the new secret letters, but public threads are the opens dangerous forum where reputations are made and destroyed. The performance of status and class. Austen status markers, lands ownership, uh, lineage, and carriage, education, and connections. So digital status markers as like verification and blue checks, the modern equivalent of having a respected name or a family seal. The influencer estate, followers, engagement, and sponsored content replace the income from landed estate. It is a performance of wealth, not necessarily its reality. As we know that if Austen lived today, so she might see social media as a digital marathon, so a virtual town square where gossip spreads instantly. So the critic is Austen would see the performance of influencing as a vulgar and potentially deceitful, masking financial insecurity or lack of genuine virtue behind polished aesthetics. Now move on the conclusion. A word amplified, a familiar engine. She would recognize social media as a hyper efficient tool for the social mechanics. She always wrote about finding partners, seeking status, and broadcasting opinion. And unruly tools. She would be horrified by the lack of property and the destructions of privacy, as well as the same human nature. Ultimately, the characters, the gossip, the vain, the sinner, and the misunderstood. These are my learning outcomes and the references. Thank you. Now it's your turn for asking a question.
So my question to you, Radhika, is how has the modern Janet fandom on the social media diversified the interpretation of her works?
Okay, so the answer is social media platforms allow fan communities to collectively generate new, more and inclusive readings or of Austen's novels, and this had led to interpretations that explored the challenge traditional narratives and concentrate to gender, race, and sexuality in her story, often moving beyond the historical demure chain image. Next question.
My question is to you, what are key examples of digital native adaptations that have expanded Austen's reach to a younger audience?
Okay, so the example of the most notable example is like transmedia web series like the Lizzie Bennet diaries, and vlog style as Pride and Prejudice on we can also see that on YouTube, and Ima approved. So as we can find out YouTube, Twitter also, and it is. Thank you so much. This is from my side.
So, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm audible. Yeah. So, hello, everyone. Audible. So, good afternoon, everyone. Myself, SANDHYA BHUT. Today, my presentation topic is marriage as a marketplace, class, money, and morality in Austen social vision. This is my academic details and presentation details. This is the table of content. This is my research questions, that how does Jane Austen show marriage as a kind of social and money market, and what moral message do she give through this? My hypothesis is this: Austen critiques the 18th and 19th century marriage market by portraying how financial necessity and classes ambitions often overshadow moral judgment. Yet through her heroines, she redefines marriage as a moral partnership, suggesting that uh, suggesting that genuine virtue and mutual respect rather than wealth ensure social and personal fulfillment. uh, Introductions. Jane Austen was born in 1775 and died in 1870. She was a famous English novelist known for his work like Pride and Prejudice, Emma, and Sense and Sensibility, and etc. Jane Austen showed that marriage in her time was not only about love but also about money and social class. Women had a few chances to earn money, so marriage was their main way to have security and respect. Uh, in Ima, they reach use in Ima the rich use marriage to keep their class positions and controls other. Austin used her stories to question how money and morality connect in her society. uh, Social background of women, classes, and money. In Austin times, laws gave property only to men, and women depend on marriage for home and money. Social status came from family connections and income, not from hard work. Austin carefully notes how much money each characters earn to show the class system. Her novels teach that moral worth and social worth were wrongly mixed in her words. Marriage as a marketplace. In Jane Austen's novels, marriage often works like a marketplace where people are judged by their social and economic value. Women are treated like commodities. Their beauty, manners, and moral character becomes their from of currency in a society. Men's, on the other hand, are valued for their income, property, and family background, which define their power in choices partners. Austen's characters often speak and think in the language of trade, a good match, suitable fortune, a proper connection, showing how love is a mixed with a financial interest. However, Austen used irony to challenge this idea. She suggested that real happiness is in a marriage comes not from wealth or status, but from mature respect and moral understanding. Through her writing, Austen showed that when love becomes transactions, both emotions and morality lose their true value. Class and moral value. Social rank is not natural, it is created and protected by marriage and money. Elizabeth Bennet from Pride and Prejudice use her intelligence and morality to rise in a social respect. Emma Woodhouse show how manners can be used to control class boundaries. Austin teach that true worth comes from good characters, not from birth or wealth. Money and morality in Austen's words. Jane Austen often tells readers expect income of her characters to show how people judge her by money, not by characters. In a Pride and Prejudice, people thinks that Mr. Darcy is the perfect man just because he is very rich, and even before they know what kind of person he is really. For women, virtue and good manners are treated as their only capital signs. They cannot earn or inherit property. This means women's personal qualities becomes a part of an unfair social economy where morality and appearances are turned into trade goods. Austen's stories quite criticize these words. She shows that when wealth decide a person's worth through morality and love lost their meaning. Uh, Through her irony, Austen teaches that real value lies in characters, in kindness, is not in income or classes. Example from Austen's novel Pride and Prejudice. Charlotte Lucas' marriage for money, showing survival needs. Elizabeth and Darcy represent the balance of love and respect. Emma. Emma's matchmaking show how people treat love and class like goods in a market. Persuasion, Anne Elliot choice love and moral truth over wealth or class. Conclusion. Jane Austen's novels reveals how marriage in her time was deeply shaped by class structure, gender equality, and financial concern. By portraying marriage as a both lim- both personal and economic transactions. She highlights the limited choices available to women and the more compromises often required by society. These are my references. Thank you. If anyone any question, please ask.
My question is to you, what role does morality play in Austen's view of marriage?
Austin's Austin's believe that moral value, honesty and respect are more important than beauty and wealth. Next.
Hello. My question is, why does Austen's ideas about love and class still matter today?
Because even people people sometimes judge others by money and status, not for who they are truly. Thank you. That's from my side.
Hello everyone. Good afternoon to all. Today's my presentation's topic is emotional and social relationship in Pride and Prejudice. Here is my academic detail and presentation details. Here is table of content. Here is research question. How do shame and social class shape emotional intimacy in Elizabeth and Darcy's relationship in Pride and Prejudice? And hypothesis Austen demonstrates that authentic romantic intimacy requires both partners to dismantle shame-based defense like Pride and Prejudice through mutual vulnerability and self-examination. Introduction: the marriage question. Austen opens, it is truth universally acknowledged that a single man is possession of good fortune must be in a want a wife. Marriage represented woman's only path to economic security. In Charlotte Lucas states in the novel, I ask only comfortable home. Yet the novel questions whether marriage without emotional connection can bring happiness or not. Elizabeth Bennet refuses Mr. Collins despite economic pressure, insists on love as essential. In today's parallel, we still negotiate between practical concern and genuine emotional connection in relationship. Same as emotional foundation. Gordon Hess argues same is Elizabeth's main affectual motive. She constantly experienced embarrassment about her family. After reading Darcy's letter, Elizabeth confessed how despicably I acted, how humiliating is this discovery. Till this moment, I never knew myself. Elizabeth's wit and prejudice function as defense against feeling of inferiority and vulnerability. Her wounded pride from Darcy calling her tolerable but not handsome enough to tempt me. In modern insight, defensive behavior often marks deeper feeling of inadequacy and shame. Social class and romantic possibility. Darcy initially opposed Elizabeth due to her family's total want of priority so frequently display an inferior connection. Handler argues in Austen's world, social hierarchy determines personal worth. To be dependent upon another is to be incomplete as human being. Lydia's elopement creates disgrace that threatens all sisters' marital prospectus through scandal. Darcy's intervention to save Lydia demonstrates love transcending class prejudice. He risks reputation for Elizabeth. In contemporary parallel, socio-economic inequality still shapes who we meet, date, and ultimately marry. In Darcy's emotional transformation, Darcy confessed, I was spoiled by my parents, taught to be selfish and overbearing to care for none beyond my own family circle. His apparent pride reveals fragility, believing in superiority only if he could think mainly of everyone else. Elizabeth observed Darcy's Pemberley, so desire to please, so free from self consequences or unbending reserve. Darcy tells Elizabeth, you taught me a lesson, hard indeed at first, but most advantageous. By you, I was properly humbled. In today's lesson, authentic intimacy required dropping protective barrier and accepting correction from partners. Elizabeth's journeys to self-knowledge. Elizabeth realized vanity, not love, has been my folly, pleased with the profanes of one like Wickham, and offended by the neglect of the other like Darcy. I have quoted prepositions and ignorance. Her prejudice stemmed from wounded pride. Darcy's initially snub made her defensive and hostile. Here's not Elizabeth's pride has driven her to be defensive prejudice. Beneath pride lies vulnerability to shame. She must confront how quickly she believed Wickham's flattery while dismissing Darcy's character. In modern relevant confirmation bias and ego protection still make us resist evidence contradiction first impressions. The language of unspoken desire. Dennis Allen identifies dance, look, and walks as symbolic expression of desire that connect to be distinct, direct acknowledge. Austen homage direct depiction of Darcy's successful proposal, describing him expressing himself as warmly as a man violently in love can be supposed to do. Darcy reputedly asked Elizabeth to dance. She unconsciously accepted at Netherlands without knowing what she did. Stout argues Austen believing language is in itself inadequate to the expression of strong emotion. In contemporary insights, sometimes intense emotion resist verbal expression, gesture, communicate what world cannot. I am not romantic. Charlotte marriage without emotion. Charlotte declared happiness in marriage is entirely a matter of chance. I ask only a comfortable home. Elizabeth finds Charlotte marriage humiliating, believing she has disgraced herself and sunk in her esteem. Yet Charlotte wisely did not hear Collins' absurdity and pragmatically magnifying what she cannot change. In modern parallel, economic pressure still forces choices between econ, emotional fulfillment and financial security. Jane Bennett emotionally repressed and depression. Jane exhibit constant complaisance in her air and manner. Elizabeth observed Jane's letter showing a want of what cheerfulness. Nothing Jane was not happy. Is not Jane's depression stem from turning judgment inwards, suspicious about other become self-blame. In today's insight, people please pleasures who cannot express anger or criticism often develop depression and diminish self-worth. Mutual education through love. Darcy tells Elizabeth, "You taught me a lesson hard indeed at first, but most advantageous. By you, I was properly humbled." Elizabeth recognized her own need. Till this moment, I never knew myself. In contemporary relation, healthy relationship require partners who acknowledge mistakes and learn from each other. The resolution, emotional and social achievement. Elizabeth achieved both emotional fulfillment and social evaluation, escaping society so little, pleasing to either to all the comfort and elegant of their family, party and Pemberley. Its notice, Elizabeth's marriage represent upward mobility, freeing her from family shame while achieving genuine level and modern relevant lasting partnership needed emotional intimacy and compatible value, goal, and lifestyle. In conclusion, Pride and Prejudice, contemporary relevance. Austen demonstrates shame and the defense against it play such an important role in our own lives and culture. Elizabeth and Darcy journey show successful relationship, balance emotional authenticity and against social relationship. In today's application, relationships still demand balancing authentic feeling with practical concern while managing shame and vulnerability. Here as the references and learning outcome is analyze psychological defense, evaluating social constraint, trace character transformation, identify symbolic communication, compare marital motivation, and synthesize the novel resolution. Thank you for your kind attention. Now you are welcome for question answer.
Besides a flaw, what purpose does Darcy Pride serve?
Darcy's pride acts as psychological defense. It shields his vulnerability and reinforcement, a sense of superiority that he was taught, which he used to keep emotional distance with those considered as his social inferiors. Next question.
The question is, how does Charolaine's view on marriage challenge Elizabeth's romantic ideals?
Charolaine's pragmatic choice for a comfortable home challenges Elizabeth's idea for marriage. It shows that for some marriage was less about love and more about survival. Thank you. This is all from my side.
So, hello everyone. Today I'll warmly welcome you audience to in that insightful afternoon. Today I'm going to present on a marriage, media and misogyny, what Austen and the Romantics tell us about modern gender and politics. Here are my academic details and personal details. Here is the table of content. From there you can understand how my presentation is going on. Here is my research question and hypothesis. My research question is that how do Jane Austen and the Romantic poets transform the idea of female virtue from social obedience to intellectual and emotional resistance? And what does this reveal about the persistence of patriarchy in both their age and ours? My hypothesis is connected to my presentation, and it shows that the works of Jane Austen and the Romantic poets reveal an early critique of patriarchal structures that continues to resonate in modern gender politics, demonstrating that the social control of woman through marriage, morality, and reputation has evolved into new form of media-driven misogyny. Virtue goes viral. Austen, the Romantics, and the reinvention of womanhood. 2 centuries ago, Elizabeth Bennet was judged for her words in her pride, her refusal to conform. Today, women are judged again, not in drawing rooms, but on screens. We saw that now women are constantly noticing by their likes and their comments on their social accounts. Like comments and hashtags have replaced gossip and reputation. Austen and the Romantics saw these comings. They know that behind every romance lies a system of power, of performance, of a patriarchy. So this isn't just a literature from the past. This is the mirror held up to our present. This is my gist of presentation. Introduction: the gender script from Austen's parlors to our Instagram feeds. Society has always measured women by virtue, beauty, and social conformity. That quotation I'll take from my references. Let's begin with a simple idea. Society has always had a script for a woman, whether it is 18th century or a 21st century. Women have been measured by how well they performed virtue, beauty, and obedience. In Austen's world, these performances took place in a drawing rooms and marriage markets. In Romantic poetry, it was disguised as idealized femininity, fragile, pure, and inspiring. But when we look closer, these works weren't just reflecting their times. They were quite resisting them. And if we shift today, the platform have changed, but the performance hasn't. Social media, the workplace, even everyday judgment still echo those same expectations. Here I'm already embark one quotation from my references that from Austen's drawing room to a Romantic poetry, literature exposed the pressure to perform gender. Austen, marriage as a market, Elizabeth's rebellion against patriarchy. Think about marriage in Elizabeth Bennet's world. It wasn't about love. It was about survival, wealth, and social standing. Women were expected to trade their freedom for a security, to treat marriage like a financial deal. That is also we see in now times. Elizabeth Bennet's rebellion. What is the Elizabeth Bennet rebellion in Austen's works? Rejects marriage for a convenience or status. We saw that first she rejects the marriage when Collins comes to convince her. Choose self-respect over a social expectation. Austen's message still resonates today. Women face pressure to conform in careers, in relationships, in public image. Elizabeth's words, I am only resolved to act in that manner, which will, in my own opinion, constitute my happiness. Remind us that choosing authenticity over expectation is a timeless act of courage. Elizabeth defines became an early act of feminist freedom, still echoing in every woman who choose authenticity or approval. Here I'm also embark on key quotation from my references. I'm only resolved to act in that manner which will, in my own opinion, constitute my happiness. When the thing is come to a Romantic poetry, emotional labor and gender expectation. Romantic poetry often made women the emotional and moral center of the story, but always through male lens, not by the female lens. Wordsworth and Coleridge show us women guiding the heart, while Keats, Byron, and Shelley explore desire and rebellion, yet men control the narrative, not controlled by the woman. Wordsworth and Coleridge female characters often define the moral and emotional core, but are framed by a male perspective. Fast forward to today, women continue to carry emotional labor, silently navigating invincible rule in workplace, relationships, and society. The Romantics wrote it with a quill, but the expectation hasn't disappeared. Wordsworth and Coleridge female characters often define the moral and emotional core, yet are framed by a male perspective. That is also I am taken from a references. Here are the hidden contexts then and now. Then reputation, virtue judge, and now social media's likes and public opinions, how the people saw their posts and their reels. Marriage and wealth dictated status, workplace biases, rational pressures. Women navigate male morality, and now women navigate male-dominated space and digital scrutiny. The patriarchy adapts, but women's struggle for autonomy continues. 4 centuries, the woman value has been measured first by reputation, virtue, and marriage, and now by social media likes, workplace approval, and public opinion. In my conclusion, patriarchy adapts, but women's resistance remains timeless. Let's think of a literature as a feminist lens, a way to see both the persistence of a patriarchy and the resilience of a woman. Writers like Austen, Wordsworth, Coleridge, Keats, Byron, and Shelley captured patterns of a misogyny that still resonate today. These texts reveal women's strategies of resistance, supple, bold, and unwavering. And these struggles aren't confined to a past, they echo in modern protests, workplace, and online spaces where women demand equality and recognition. Literature then is more than stories, it's a warning and inspiration. Patriarchy may change, but women's resistance remains timeless. Literature reveals pattern of a misogyny that persists today. Here are my references. Literary outcome. What is the literary outcome of my presentation, and what I can give the people, what can they understand by my presentation? Through this exploration of Austen and the Romantics, we see that literature is more than a storytelling. Literature is not about the storytelling and tell us a tale, and but literature is beyond that. It is a mirror to a societal norms and a subtle tool to critique you. Austen explores how marriage, wealth, and social expectation constrain women, while romantic poetry illuminates the tension between female desire, virtue, and male-defined morality. Collectively, this text reveals a persistent pattern. Patriarchal structure shaped women's life, yet women's resistance and moral agency endure. By tracing this pattern to a contemporary context, social media, workplace pressure, and public judgment, we recognize that the literary past actively dialogues with the present, offering insight into ongoing struggles for autonomy, recognition, and equality. Here is the summary of table. From that, you can understand whole my presentation thoroughly and in brief. Thank you. If anyone have a question, so they can ask.
My question is, has social media really liberate women or just given patriarchy a new stage?
Yeah, that is true, because nowadays we see the social media, most of posts are posted by a woman. So we can say that it is social media became a stand for a liberated woman. Social media amplifies women's voice, but also exposes them to judgment and policing. Like 18th century drawing rooms, the stage is new, but the rules and security remain. Another question?
So my question to you, why do women's choices still spark a debate more than men's achievements?
Because nowadays the situation is changed. Now we are on that stage where we still think that now we need a new concept that called manism, because now feminism is on that high. That's why I think that still spark debate more than a men's achievement. Thank you. This is from my side.
So, hello. So, hello everyone, myself SIDDHIBA GOHIL, and my today's presentation topic is Contrasting Feminine Ideals, a comparative study of Pride and Prejudice and Jane Eyre. These are my presentation details and academic details. Table of content. So, my research question is, to what extent do Jane Austen and Charlotte Bronte utilizes their novel as a discursive tools to critique and subvert the patriarchal social expectations of women, patriarchal regarding economic and dependence agency and rebellion. So my hypotheses are, although Jane Austen and Charlotte Bronte adopt contrasting literary styles, Austen's satirical realism, critiquing class hypocrisy within social bounds, and Bronte's emotional romanticism exposing class oppression and patriarchal injustice. Both novels demonstrate that women's upward social mobility and personal agency are achievable through intellectual independence and moral resistance, albeit with significant barriers, ultimately advocating for gender equity in a reluctant 19th century society. So here is the introduction. We can see that how Jane Austen and Charlotte Bronte uses their novel as discursive tool to critique and subvert the patriarchal societal expectations of women in 19th century. We can see that how they wrote women, as we can say that protagonists used to be the rebel. They used to fight for their rights, and they used to be different from the other women which author described. Like we can see in the table that the women like Jane Bennet, Miss Bingley are well mannered, quiet, and they doesn't protest or do things which protagonists do in their story. We can see in the 18th and 19th centuries, women lacked economic basis and creative freedom, and women were regulated to decoration in the living room and angels in the kitchen. This is the reference person's code. Austen played a pioneering role in English female literature. Bronte further developed these feminist thoughts in this summary. We can see that both authors campaign female independence. They utilizes fundamental different narrative resolutions. In Elizabeth Bennet's autonomy, secured through the reformation of the patriarchy and integration into existing social hierarchy, her victory is primarily intellectual and social. Jane's autonomy is secured through the destruction of the patriarchal structure and attainment of financial independence. Her marriage to Maine Rochester represent a complete reversal of power, establishing a radical personal model of equality. We can see that both novels remark a necessary progression towards female self-determination, with Bronte's work presenting a more revolutionary and challenging models for female agency. Social class in Pride and Prejudice, we can see that how Elizabeth Bennet navigates middle class contrast. She rejects many proposals for love and respect. Another point, I'll say that critiquing upper class. Jane Austen criticizes upper class as we can see that Darcy, Catherine de Bow, they are arrogant, shows as arrogant people. And social mobility via marriage, women's limited right, dependence on marriage for security. We can see this in Lydia's character. Next point is social class in Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre was an orphan and low class. We can see how she faces abuse and inequality because of her social condition. We can see that mobility through education, work as governance. She worked for herself and critiques class oppression and limited women's role. Rebellion against injustice symbolizes fight for freedom. The next quote I have taken from Jane Eyre's comparison, a comparison structure and structural look at feminist themes in both Pride and Prejudice and Jane Eyre. The work established a detailed thematic background on social constraint, economic dependence, and both individual autonomy in 19th century before drawing its final comparative conclusions. We can see that it argues that while both authors campaign female independence, they utilizes fundamentally different narrative solutions. Elizabeth resists by mocking social norms by using her wit to challenge the powerful. Jane engages in fierce open revolt, and the paper even interprets the character of Bertha Manson as a symbols represent 19th century womanhood. Jane's famous line, "Women just feel as men feel," extrapolates this passionate demand for acknowledgement. These are the table which shows the comparison between it. Feminism in the novel. Independent personality. We can see that Elizabeth rejects convocation, values intellect over beauty. Jane rebels against injustice, demands inequality. We can see that true love as marriage foundation reject wealth-based unions, equality, mutual respect, Bronte radical equality. Elizabeth mocks societal norms. Jane, on the other hand, fires and revolt, Bretha as a symbol of repressed women. Comparison between two analyses, we can see that both are similar, but there are few points which we can see in it. Both emphasize women challenges in social bond societies, highlight protagonist independence and critics of patriarchy, discuss more marriage as mobility tool but advocate for love and equality. We can see that the reference which I have taken, there are difference in it. uh, First one is focus on social class mobility historical content, while other one expect feminism deeper on resistance. Overall site complementary views showing evolution from Jane's Austen's subtlety to Bronte's boldness. Conclusion. These analyses reveal how Austen and Bronte used their novels to challenge 19th century norms as the class, gender, and mobility, insight into ongoing issues of inequality females. Final thought is I am no bird and no net ensures me symbolizes during the independence. This is the quote from Bronte's. These are my references. Thank you. Any question are welcome.
So my question is that how does the use of first person Bronte versus third person Austen narration influence the reader's perception of the feminine ideal in each text?
So the first person narration of the third person's narration of Pride and Prejudice frames Elizabeth as a social ideal focused on external wit. As we can see in the other side, Jane Eyre's first person voice creates an intense intimacy, defining Jane's ideal as an internal and moral and spiritual struggle. So next one.
My question is, how do Darcy's and Rochester's different reformation align with the distinct feminine ideals championed by each novel?
So, as we can see that Darcy's ethical reformation validates Elizabeth's sharp and intellectual and wit personality. We can see that they both are different from each other, and Rochester's conversely, physical and spiritual humbling is necessary to achieve equality and validate Jane's deep and moral integrity. So, that's all from my side. Thank you.
So, hello everyone. My name is Vanita. So, today's presentation topic marriage for love or convenience in Pride and Prejudice, a feminist and social perspective. So, in that presentation, I will discuss about how Jane Austen's represents marriage for love and marriage for convenience. So I will focus on characters like Charlotte Lucas and Elizabeth, and how these ideas about marriage are still relevant in today.
So these are my academic details and presentation details, table of content. So my research question is that how does Pride and Prejudice portray marriage through characters like Elizabeth and Charlotte to show Jane Austen's support for love over social status, and can this be seen as a feminist message about women's right to choose in marriage? So my hypothesis is that Jane Austen shows that true marriage should be based on love, respect, and understanding. Criticize unions made only for money or social status, and highlights women's independence in choosing their partner through Elizabeth's example. So, introductions. In early 19th century England, marriage was not just a personal choice but a social necessity, especially for women. So, marriage in Pride and Prejudice is a central theme that reflects the social norms, economic concerns, and gender expectations of the 19th century. So, through characters like Elizabeth Bennet, who chooses love and respect, and Charlotte Lucas, who chooses security. So, Austen presents both a feminist perspective and a social critique of marriage. So we should know about the aspect of people in 19th century about the marriage. So in 19th century, women did not have jobs and freedoms, so that the only way to get financial support is was marriage in 19th century. So in Jane Austen's time, marriage was often more about money, social status, and security than love. So women had very few choices, and usually dependent on marriage for their future well-being. So here are four types of marriages in the novel. So first is Elizabeth and Darcy, Charlotte and Collins, Jane and Bingley's, and Lydia and Wickham's. So first we discuss Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy, the marriage of true love and respect. So the central love story of Elizabeth and Darcy shows as Austen's ideal vision of marriage. So Elizabeth and Darcy is an example of true love in modern time. So at first, both characters are blinded by pride and prejudice. Elizabeth is too prejudiced to see Darcy's true character. So over time they grow and mature, overcoming this flaw. So their marriage is based on love and respect. So second is Charlotte Lucas and Mr. Collins, the marriage for convenience. So Charlotte Lucas, Elizabeth friends, marries Mr. Collins not for love but for security. So Charlotte's decision shows that how woman was pressured for marriage for their financial support or stability. So Charlotte is a 27-year-old, and she does not care about love, and she does not want to be burden for their parents, so that she accept Mr. Collins' proposal despite finding him foolish and boring. So marriage and money, social pressures. So many characters in Pride and Prejudice believes that money is the most important factor in marriage. So Mrs. Bennet believes that for women, daughters should marry for their financial stability and safety. So she pressures her daughter to marry rich men to secure their future. This shows how society valued wealth and status over personal happiness or love. So Lydia's impulsive marriage to Wickham illustrate the risk of rushing into a relationship without considering character or stability. So Austen criticized marriages based on solely on wealth or convenience, emphasizing that love, respect, and understanding are more important for successful and happy union. So feminist view. This slide is about a feminist view in Pride and Prejudice. So Elizabeth Bennet chooses love over wealth and refuse to be controlled by society's expectations. So she valued equality, respect, and understanding in her marriage, showing that personal happiness is matters more than social advantages. So, through Elizabeth's strong voice and independence decision, Austen presents as early feminist idea. So modern relevance, how it is today. So in Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen explores how marriage can be based on love, social expectations, or financial security. So Elizabeth chooses Darcy for love, respect, and understanding, showing the importance of personal choice and emotional connection. So in contrast, Charlotte Lucas marries Mr. Collins for security, reflecting societal pressures and practical considerations. So today similar patterns exist. Some people marry for love, while some people marry for their capability, their financial security, their safety, their social status. So Austen's message about valuing love, respect, and equality in marriage remains relevant, reminding us that while society has changed, the balance between personal happiness and practical concerns is still an important factor in modern relationships. So societal expectation in marriage, past versus present. So how marriage was in 19th century, and how the situation of marriage in present society. So reason for marriage, role of women, family and pressure, social judgments, and choice of partners. So this slide shows that how the situation was in past and how the situation in present time. So conclusion, in Pride and Prejudice, marriage is not one dimension. Austen presents it as a social necessity in her time, a mirror of character revealing personalities, values, and priorities, a means of critique, exposing the limitations and hypocrisy of society. So through the Elizabeth and Darcy's journey, Austen shows that the best marriages come not from convenience or passions alone, but from a deep, evolving bond built on love, respect, and understanding. So these are my learning outcomes, and this is my presentation's overview. These are references, and thank you so much. And if you have any question, feel free to ask.
So my question is, how do modern divorce rates reflect changing views on love versus convenience in marriage?
Modern divorce rights reflect that people give priority to their love, their personal views, and their career. So that in past divorce is as a stigmatized. So in today, people don't want to stay in marriage, which is for convenience and social pressures. So that another one.
Hello. So, how do other classic novel portrays love versus convenience in marriage compared to Austen?
So there are many novels portraits love versus convenience in marriage, like Jane Eyre, Emma. Apart from that, Shamela is about criticizing marriage for convenience. So thank you. This is from my side.
Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, GRISHMA RAVAL, and today's presentation is about the doppelganger motif, Victor and the creature as reflections of the divided self in Frankenstein. So, these are my table of contents, my academic and presentation details. So, my research question focuses on that how does the motif contribute to Gothic literature's exploration of identity and human psychology? And the hypothesis is that the doppelganger motif in Frankenstein is contributing to Gothic literature's exploration of identity and human psychology by externalizing the internal conflicts and moral dilemmas. And Victor and the creature function as mirrored selves, revealing suppressed desires, fears, and guilt, which allows the novel to examine the complexities of human identity, the divided self, and the psychological consequences of isolation and ambition. So, first, the introduction to the doppelganger motif in Frankenstein. So, if we talk about the definition of the doppelganger motif, then it is a literary double which is reflecting a character's hidden or darker self. So, in Frankenstein, Victor and the creature mirror each other in way which they show ambition, guilt, and emotional conflict. So, the significance here lies is that it is highlighting the divided self, identity crisis, as well as the moral responsibility between both the characters. And the objective here is to explore how Shelley is using this motive to critique the human ambition and the consequences of rejecting one's own inner darkness within themselves. So, if we talk about the historical and the literary context of this, then the Gothic literature in Frankenstein, it is a quintessential Gothic novel which is characterized by its exploration of the sublime, the supernatural, and the grotesque. So, if we talk regarding Romanticism, then the novel is reflecting on the romantic ideals, which is emphasizing on individualism, sublime, and also the critique of Enlightenment rationalism. And from the scientific context, this era's fascination with galvanism and the possibility of re-inhabiting lives influenced Shelley's portrayal of Victor's experiment in the novel. So now let us come to Victor Frankenstein, the fragmented self. So his ambition and obsession is being seen in his relentless pursuit of knowledge, which is leading him towards transcend natural boundaries, which is creating a life without considering the moral implications, which further on created very big dilemmas for him. So then his obsession is isolating himself from his family, his lover, and the society, which is mirroring the creature's own solitude.
And if we talk about guilt and denial, then upon creating the creature, he is very much horrified of it, and he is rejecting his own creation, which is symbolizing that even he is rejecting his own darker impulses. Then let us come to the creature, who is the mirror and shadow of Victor. So the creature, though he is innocent at birth, is becoming very vengeful due to the societal rejection as well, and as well he was rejected by his creature himself. So this can show that this observation, that the creature is becoming self-aware of his deformity, and the reasons for his ostracization is showing that how from a good creature to a vengeful creature he is becoming. So this duality is embodied in both innocence and monstrosity within him, which is reflecting Victor's own internal conflict as well. So now the doppelganger relationship between the both is that they have mirrored fates. The Victor and creature's lives are intertwined, and their actions directly affect each other, which is symbolizing the interconnectedness of their psyches. And the projection is that Victor is projecting his own fears and guilt onto the creature, and whereas the creature is reflecting Victor's own suppressed emotions and desires within itself. So the tragic outcome is that the inability to reconcile, and this dual aspects leads to a mutual destruction of both of them, which highlights the dangers of self-rejection. So I have taken quotes from Frankenstein, especially a quote from Monster and from Victor, which is parallelly mirroring both of them. So the quote from Monster is, "If I cannot inspire love, I will cause fear." So this statement is embodying the core theme of the doppelganger and the divided self, where creature is mirroring Victor's own emotional extremes, his longing for recognition, which is turning into a destructive obsession. So when love, empathy, and belonging are denied, the creature is redirecting those emotions into anger and retribution, which is seeking power through fear as a substitute for affection. So on a symbolic level, this quote reflects the human need for connection and psychological consequences of rejection. So we can say that without compassion, even the creation is turning into monstrous thing. Then we have a line by Victor Frankenstein where he says, "You seek for knowledge and wisdom as I once did. And I ardently hope that the gratification of your wishes may not be a serpent to sting you, as mine has been." So here this line is contrasting the creature's turn to vengeance with Victor's remorse. And while the creature is transforming rejection into destructive anger, Victor is turning his own overreaching ambition inward towards the creature, which is recognizing its poisonous consequences, which will affect later on. So in conclusion, if I say that from psychological insight, this novel is offering a profound exploration of the human psyche, illustrating the consequences of ignoring the darker aspects of the self within us, and the moral reflection serves as a cautionary tale about the perils of unchecked ambition and importance of moral responsibility within us, which we should understand if we talk in the contemporary times. And it's literally legacy. If we talk about that, Frankenstein is continuing to resonate today as well, and is influencing discussions on identity, ethics, and the human condition. So my research question and hypothesis is justified because Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is using the doppelganger motif to externalize Victor Frankenstein's inner turmoil, his guilt, his repressed desires, by dividing the creator and his creation. And Victor's intellectual arrogance and moral denial are mirrored in the creature's emotional depth, suffering, as well as his vengeance, which is forming two halves of a fractured self. So their intertwined existence reveals identity as relational and unstable, where each defines and reflects the other through ambition, isolation, and rejection. So the novel is becoming a psychological drama where internal conflicts are projected outward, showing how suppressed emotions and moral irresponsibility lead to destruction. And ultimately, the mutual downfall is being seen of both the victor and the creature, which underscores Shelley's warning that the refusal to acknowledge and reconcile one's darker impulses results in self annihilation, making the doppelganger a powerful symbol of the divided human psyche in Gothic literature. So I have made a chart as well where I have shown the aspect regarding Victor, the creature, and their significance, where I have shown moral responsibility between the two, their relationship to society, their reflection, the doppelganger motive, the outcome, then their origin and how they were created, their personality, their traits, and how they are shown isolated, and the learning outcome which I gained from this, that I understood the doppelganger motive between them. Then I analyzed the character duality, then interpreted psychological themes with the help of some essays, and then I related it with literature and human psychology together, and I evaluated the literary techniques used in this, because motive was my central theme. And then I developed a critical thinking regarding it and made my presentation. And these are the references I have used. Thank you so much. If anyone has any question, you can ask.
Hello. Hello. So, Grishma, my question is that if Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein in the 21st century, what kind of creature might Victor create? A robot, a virtue being, or a digital consciousness?
So in this contemporary times, if a robot was being made, because now we can't make a monster, now robots can be made using artificial intelligence. So Victor might have, instead of stitching the flesh, he might have used certain codes and algorithms to make a humanoid robot, or an AI. And if in contemporary times, if I take examples from Hindi films, then we have robot, the robot named Chitti, and how he was created for the good, but later on, because of his obsession, he became negative. So I can say that something which was created for the wellness of environment, and he was also somewhat rejected by his creator. So we can see a parallelness between Frankenstein and robot as well. And the current movie which came, I think, last year, Tere Pyar Mein Ulja Jia, where Sifra, a robot named Sifra, was being made, and in that also we can see parallelism between the monster and the robot. So this can be dangerous as well and fruitful as well. If we know how to respect our creation, then we can manage it properly. Anyone else?
So, how does the creature's longing for companionship parallel model feelings of isolation in the digital era?
So in contemporary digitalized era, if we see that everyone is looking for some connection everywhere, so in this digital era, I can say that isolation is very much evidently seen in everyone. So even the monster which was created as a good source, and he had good knowledge, good skills,
just because he was looking ugly, he was rejected by his own creator. So even in this contemporary times, with the help of social media, we stay connected with everyone, but in the real world, if we try to do so, we are not able to maintain that, and which makes someone feel isolated while digitally being connected. So this highlights how dual faced the society is, that they are something else outside and something else from the inside. So that is it from my side. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, VYAS, and today I am going to present the spark of creation, factors that inspired Mary Shelley to write Frankenstein. So here is my academic details and presentation details. This is a table of contents which I will discuss today. So my research question is, how did Mary Shelley's personal experiences, intellectual environment and historical context influence the creation of Frankenstein, shaping its theme of ambitions, creation and human responsibility? Hypothesis is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein was inspired by a fusion of personal grief, romantic and scientific ideas, and the intellectual climate of the early 19th century. These influences transformed her personal emotions and cultural observation into a timeless exploration of creation, loss, and the limits of human ambitions. So introduction to Frankenstein and Mary Shelley. As we know that Frankenstein or the modern Prometheus is published in 1880. It is a gothic novel, wrote it aged 18 during a stormy summer in Switzerland, is inspired by a dream following discussion on science and the supernatural. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is far more than a ghost story. It is also profound culture artifact born from convergence of four major influence. First one is the romantic scientific debates of her time, particularly vitalism and galvanism. Third one is deeply personal traumas of motherlessness and repeated loss, and the visual and psychological intensity of Gothic art. So, and the emerging discourse of psychology that question human consciousness and moral responsibility. The novel function as an examination of innovations and narration. So, blending intellectual progress with narrative experimentation, and written during this novel, the stormy summer of 1860, as I earlier mentioned, and Lake Geneva, when Mary Shelley was only 18. The novel reflects the powerful fusion of scientific curiosity and emotional isolation that define her experience. The Genesis story, the summers of 1860, the pact in Geneva, a waking dream. The summer of 1860 at Villa Didotti, marked by inside rain and intellectual intensity, served as a crucible for Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. The isolation and the atmosphere of intellectual ferment, catalyzed by Lord Byron's challenge to compose a ghost story, pushed her toward a literary breakthrough. So, Shelley's inspiration arrived during a late night discussion about galvanism. So, the experimental concept of using electricity to reanimate dead flesh. So, this idea, which stemmed from a rational reflection on the terrified potential of modern science, culminated in a chilling vision, the pale student of unallowed arts kneeling beside the thing he had put together. The factor number one, personal life influence, motherlessness, and patriarchy. So, Mary Shelley's experience of profound personal loss deeply shaped the emotional and thematic core of Frankenstein. Her mother, the pioneer feminist writer Mary Wollstonecraft, died shortly after giving birth to her, so leaving Shelley motherless from the start. And this trauma that resonates throughout the novel and its recurring motifs of abandonment and creation without nurture. So then he raised by her philosopher father named William Godwin, so with whom she shared a strained relationship. Shelley grew up within an intellectual yet emotionally distant household, and her elopement with Percy Bysshe Shelley, marked by social scandal and family rejection, further her contributed to her lifelong sense of isolation and rebellion. Critique of patriarchal creation. So, patriarchal appropriation. Victor's Act is a critique of patriarchal appropriation. So, replacing natural and maternal birth with a cold and mechanical process driven by male intellectual and rationalism. The warning: creatures, isolation, and violence are the inevitable result of birth, devoiding compassion and rational responsibility. Factor number 2: scientific influence, Galvanism and Romantic science. Early 19th century science deeply shaped Mary Shelley's creation of Frankenstein. In 1868, Villa, Shelley, Byron, and Percy Bysshe Shelley discussed galvanism and this theory that electricity could animate lifeless matter. Shelley's link with Dr. James Lind exposed her to scientific curiosity mixed with moral concern. The psychological writers. The preface names Dr. Erasmus Darwin, the psychological writers of Germany, physiological writers, grounding Frankenstein in real 19th century, and Shelley critiques scientific hubris, showing Victor's pursuit of glory as a warning against knowledge without ethics. Factor number 3: artistic influence, Henry Fussel's The Nightmare. So Fussell is The Nightmare influenced Shelley's Frankenstein as a painting of the unspeakable, an extent critique of male overreach from science of the domestic sphere. For example, Elizabeth's murder, and symbolize the unspeakable trauma is Shelley's history. Factor number 4 and last one: the emergence of psychology. So Frankenstein explored the emergence of psychology by charting the creature transformation from an innocent tabula rasa to a vengeful being, and Shelley demonstrated here romantic psychological innovations revealing how external conditions shape internal conciseness. So synthesis and enduring prophecy: the frightful must be the effect of any human endeavor to mock the stupendous mechanism of creator of this world. Conclusion: Mary Shelley's Frankenstein was ignited by a confusion of personal trauma, scientific curiosity, artistic imagery, and intellectual debates. These all factors created a timeless warning about the perils of playing God. So the novel's enduring legacy stems from his rootedness in real life experience and innovation. I bid my heeders progeny go forth and prosper. Mary Shelley, 1880 preface. Here, these evidence are help to prove my hypothesis. So here my hypothesis confirmed, and these are the references. Thank you so much. Please question as welcome.
So, Kruti, can Frankenstein be read as a Mary Shelley's reflection on female creativity and the limits placed on women in her society?
Yes, Frankenstein can be seen as a Mary Shelley's reflection on a woman's limited creative freedom by showing men creativity, creative life without women. She highlights the danger of excluding women's roles in imagination and creation. Anyone else?
So my question to you is that what role did the intellectual debates about science, religion, and morality during the Romantic period play in shaping Shelley's work?
During the Romantic period, intellectual debate about science, religion, and morality inspired Shelley to show both power and as well as danger of human ambition. And Frankenstein wants that science without moral responsibility can be lead to the tragedy. So this is from my side. Thank you.
Hello. So, hello everyone. My name is Priyanka Nakrani, and today I am going to present. Network issue. Let's start again. Hello everyone. My name is Priyanka Nakrani, and today I am going to present the monster within psychology and identity in Frankenstein. This is my academic and presentation details. This is table of content. And my research question is, how does Mary Shelley's Frankenstein explore the psychological construction of identity and the concept of the monster within through the mirrored mind of Victor Frankenstein and his creature? So my hypothesis is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein reveals that the true monster lies within the divided human psyche, where repression, guilt, and isolation transform inner conflict into outward monstrosity. So let's begin with introduction. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein examine the psychological and moral boundaries of human identity and creation. The novel presents Victor Frankenstein and his creature as a two sides of the same consequences, mirroring obsession, guilt, and alienation. The narration reflects early psychological insight into isolation, trauma, and self-awareness, long before modern psychoanalytic theory. Shelley's work remained timeless and as a reflection on how human ambition and emotional neglect create the monster within. The novel anticipates modern psychological debate about identity, consequences, and moral responsibility, bridging literature and early psychology. So, historical and literary context is written in Frankenstein, written in 1880 during the Romantic era. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein fused Gothic horror with romantic ideals, reflecting the tension between emotion, reason, and scientific ambition. The novel embodies romantic anxieties about individual isolation and moral responsibility, turning scientific progress into psychological introspection. Influenced by her parents, Mary Wollstonecraft and William Godwin, Shelley integrates Enlightenment, moral psychology with romantic emotionalism and constructing a literary bridge between science and the soul. So let's focus on the creature's mind. Victor's embodies the romantic outreacher whose pursuit of forbidden knowledge mirror humanity's psychological drive towards self-destruction. Shelley's portrayal of Victor illustrates the narcissistic isolation, his desire to trust morality and lead to alienation and guilt. So his downfall symbolizes the psychological consequences of deigning one's ethical and emotional responsibilities, transforming genius into a self-inflict tournament. The creature, the other, and identity format. The creature is born in innocent but shaped by social rejection, illustrating how identity is influenced by environment and society. So nature versus nature is the central theme. The creature's development and reflect the impact of social neglect and selfhood and morality. Gothic element is isolated setting, fear, and doubling emphasize psychological tension and the formation of the creature's identity. Shelley presents the creature as a complex being, struggling with consequences, morality, and belongings, highlights human vulnerability to societal and emotional neglects. Let's focus on creatures, the other, and identity format. Born innocent, and the creature's identity is shaped by social rejection and isolation, illustrating the role of environment in psychological development. The other aspect is represent the shadow of Victor Frankenstein, embodying repressed desire, guilt, and psychological conflict. Sherry's creature highlights how societal neglects the emotional deprivation shapes consequences, morality, and selfhood. Let's focus on the mirror imagery and doubling. Doubling emphasizes internal conflict, repression, and projection, illustrating the monster within each character. Doubling also emphasizes that societal influence of identity as a creature reacts to human prejudice and mirror of societal fears. Doubling further illustrates the tension between self-perception and public perception, highlights the how identity is shaped by both internal and external forces. And the mirror imagery reflects the moral and emotional consequences of neglect, showing how internal guilt project into internal monstrosity. The trauma and psychological development is here. Trauma is externalizing through anger, revenge, and destructive behavior, highlights the psychological consequences of social and family's neglect. And the trauma act as catalyst of identity formation, showing how suffering and alienation shape the creature, consequences, and victor moral awareness. So let's focus on psychoanalytic interpretation. Victor and creature represent divided aspect of human psyche and reflect internal conflicts between desire, guilt, and morality. Victor demonstrate ego and superego conflict, like balancing ambition with moral responsibility, yet falling under psychological strain. And the other is Gothic and Romance imagery, mirrors subconscious anxieties and emphasizes emotional repression and identity crisis. And also, psychoanalytic reading clarifies that moral and emotional consequences is neglect, repression, and trauma in both characters. So let's focus on contemporary relevance. And the Frankenstein explore how social rejection, isolation, and trauma shaped identity, themes still relevant in modern psyche, psychological and mental health studies. And also, Gothic and Romantic motif continue to inform contemporary literature and media, particularly narratives on identity, trauma, and human ambition. Frankenstein also emphasized as a psychological consequences of unchecked ambition, serving as a cautionary tale of both personal and professional ethics. So, let's conclude this presentation here. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein demonstrate that the true monstrosity lies not in psychological form but psychological fragmentation, repression, and neglect. So the experience of trauma, isolation, and social rejection illustrate how ethical responsibilities and consequences are shaped by emotional and societal factor. Ultimately, Frankenstein remained profoundly relevant, offering enduring insight into identity, morality, and empathy, and the consequence of unchecked ambition. So this is my learning outcome. understand how Mary Shelley's Frankenstein explored the psychological demonstration of identity, trauma, and moral responsibility. Analysis Victor Frankenstein as a creature, as a mirror of human psyche, highlights ambition, guilt, and the monster within. Recognizing the role of isolation, social rejection, and environmental factor in shaping psychological development, apply psychoanalytic framework to interpret Gothic literature and character motivations, connect Shelley's Gothic romantic motif to contemporary issue of identity ethics of societal responsibility. And these are my references. So if anyone have question, feel free to ask.
Hello. So my question is that how does transformation expose the tension between one's moral and immoral self?
Okay. When a person changes their good side and bad side start to fight, the good side wants to do what is right and the bad side wants to do what feels easy and selfish. So this shows that what kind of people they really are inside. Next question.
So my question to you is that can societal hypocrisy be seen as a collective monster within?
Okay. Yes, of course, because when a people in society behave good and act good, but do bad things in life, so it shows that bad side hiding inside everyone together, and it's just like monster made from society's lies and society's double standard, and together this becomes society's hidden dark side. So this is from my side. Thank you, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. My presentation topic is the monster as a mirror of human nature. Personal information, academic information, table of contents, research question and hypothesis is missing for my mistake, and start introduction writing in era of rapid scientific discovery. The novel explores the dangerous allure of knowledge and the creator's responsibility toward his creation by examining the trajectories of both Victor Frankenstein and his creature. We can illuminate complex contemporary issues in biomedicine, from artificial intelligence to genetic engineering, and question the very boundaries of what it meaning to be human in technological advanced world. Frankenstein mirror for modern science. The big idea. Mary Shelley Frankenstein is more than horror story. It's a powerful tools to discuss the ethical challenges in modern science and medicine, why it matters. The novel raises timeless question about scientific ambition and responsibility, the limit of human knowledge, empathy, and compassion in creation and care. Our goal to use the story of Victor and his creature to reflect on today's biomedical dilemmas. The mad scientific and unchecked ambition. Victor Frankenstein works in isolation, adding his work from other. He is driven by a desire for glory, not by the potential consequence of his action. Kierkegaard learn from me how dangerous is the acquirement of knowledge. Victor Frankenstein. Modern link this warns us about the dangers of unsupervised research and the need for transparency and ethical oversight. The failure of the humanities, the creature educates himself. He learned language, history, and philosophy. He becomes more articulate and human in his reasoning than many human characters. The tragedy, his education and eloquence are not now. Society reject him because of his appearance. The lesson, knowledge and literally alone cannot guarantee compassion or acceptation. Science needs a heart. The creatures lay responsibility and empathy. The creature is not born evil. He becomes violent after being rejected by his creature and society. He begs Victor for a companion, promising to live peacefully away from humans. Victor refuses, fearing the creation of a new species that could threaten humanity. Core ethical conflict. What is scientists' responsibility for their creation? Should empathy for other guide or action? Conclusion and in the end, Frankenstein teach a visual lesson. Scientific progress must be guided by ethics and empathy. Victor's failure was not in his science, but in his humanity. As we advance in technology, we must not forget compassion and responsibility for what we create. The true monster was not the creation, but the ambition that created it. Frankenstein remained us. With great power comes great responsibility. As we stand as the frontier of genetic engineering and artificial intelligence, let us carry forward not just the power to create, but the wisdom to care for science without conscience in is but the ruin of the soul. The learning outcome, critical thinking, ability to analyze scientific progress through an ethical lens, ethical reasoning, understanding, concept of responsibility, consent, and the playing God, debate in science, empathy development, recognize the importance of compassion and the consequence of social rejection, uh, interdisciplinary connection, see the value of using literature to understand complex scientific dilemmas. This is my references. Thank you. Any question?
So my question is that how does this relate to modern science?
It highlights the critical need for ethical oversight and transparency in research. Next.
Hello. So my question is, what is the core ethical conflict?
The struggle between creatures, fear, and their responsibility. So compassion, the creation. Thank you from my side.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mital Helaya. Today, I am going to present my topic, Imagination and the Supernatural in Coleridge Poetry. This is my academic information. This is table of contents. My research question is, how does Coleridge use his imagination to turn ordinary things into supernatural experiences? And how do ideas like symbols, nature, and divine and moral lessons make his poems deeper and more meaningful? Hypothesis: Coleridge, special kind of imagination, connects the real world with the supernatural through symbols, a sense of the divine in nature, and moral questions. He makes the supernatural feel real, emotional, and spiritually powerful for readers. Introduction: Imagination and the Supernatural in Coleridge Poetry looks at how Samuel Taylor Coleridge, a major romantic poet, uses his imagination to connect the real world with the supernatural in his poems. Coleridge is famous for mixing strange, magical, and dreamlike elements with deep human feelings. His well known poems, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner and Kubla Khan, show how imagination helps turn everyday experiences into mysterious and spiritual ones. The main idea is to understand how imagination works as a power that joins the normal world with the mystical and supernatural. Coleridge's concept of imagination. Coleridge explains two types of imagination, primary imagination and secondary imagination. Primary imagination is the basic power everyone has. It helps us see and understand the world around us. Secondary imagination is special. It belongs to poets and creative people. It reshapes and rebuilds ordinary things into a new and a creative way. Through this secondary imagination, poets can turn normal experiences into magical or dreamlike ones. This is how Coleridge mixes the natural and supernatural so smoothly that even strange events in poems like the Rime of the Ancient Mariner feel real and believable. Role of pantheism and nature. In his early poetry, Coleridge was influenced by pantheism, the idea that nature itself is divine and filled with spiritual power. Because of this belief, nature in his poems feels alive and meaningful, not just a background setting. The supernatural in his works often grows naturally out of things like landscapes, water, stars, light, wind, and water, all of which seems to carry a spiritual message or energy. In poems like Ode, Intimations of Immortality, and Religious Musings, Coleridge show how nature and the supernatural are deeply connected. This makes readers feel that the divine or mystical can be found in ordinary parts of nature, making the supernatural seem natural and believable instead of forced. Symbolism in Coleridge. Coleridge uses symbols in his poetry to connect the natural world with the supernatural or spiritual world. These symbols act like bridges, helping both worlds blend together smoothly so the poems still feel real and meaningful. For example, in the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, the albatross is powerful symbol. It stands for guilt, fate, and supernatural power. In Kubla Khan, the dreamlike places such as Xanadu and underground caves show how reality and imagination mix together. Through such symbols, Coleridge lets readers feel the spiritual, moral, and supernatural meanings hidden within natural and dreamlike images. Magical realism and the supernatural. Coleridge blends the supernatural into his poems so smoothly that it feels like a natural part of his world. His style is similar to magical realism, where magical or unusual events fit naturally with everyday life. In his poetry, the supernatural is not just for drama or show, it also has moral, spiritual, and artistic meaning. This happens because the magical elements come from the poet's own imagination, not forced into the story from outside. He achieves this by connecting nature, human thoughts, and experiences with his own imaginative vision. Dark and ambiguous supernatural. Coleridge adds moral and philosophical tension to his imagination using the idea of the satanic principle. In Coleridge poetry, satanic principle symbolizes human pride, temptation, and moral transgression, shown through supernatural and imaginative events. Here, the supernatural is morally uncertain, showing both good and harmful forces. This highlights the ethical and deep philosophical side of imagination. In his poems, imagination deals with both light and darkness, good and evil. For example, in the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, the ghostly and morally complex supernatural shows this mix of morality and imagination. Imagination in visual and performing arts. Coleridge's ideas about imagination and the supernatural have inspired many arts like theater, multimedia shows, and illustrations. These adaptations bring the ghostly and imaginative elements of his poems to life. This shows that the supernatural in his work is active and engaging, not just on the page. It also invites audiences to use their own imagination and take part in creating the magical experience. Poetic examples. The nightingale, a regular birdsong, is turned into a magical imaginative experience through Coleridge's creative imagination. The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, the supernatural events carry moral lessons and deeper symbolic meaning. Kubla Khan, dreamlike scenes mix nature, symbols, and supernatural elements. This example shows how Coleridge's imagination connects the natural world with the supernatural. His poetry combines symbolism, imagination, and ethical or spiritual ideas to give readers a deeper experience. Overall, Coleridge uses his imagination to make ordinary things extraordinary, showing the hidden magic in the world. Conclusion: Coleridge's poetic imagination acts like a bridge between the natural and supernatural worlds, creating magical experiences that are meaningful, symbolic, and beautifully structured. His early poems were influenced by pantheism, seeing nature as divine, while his later works show the power of secondary imagination and symbolism. He also explores moral questions and the satanic principle, adding depth and complexity to his supernatural themes. Through poems, art, and performances inspired by his work, Coleridge's supernatural remains alive, open to interpretations, and closely tied to his imaginative vision, showing how his creativity transforms ordinary reality into something extraordinary. These are the references. Thank you. Now, questions are welcome.
Hello. So, my question is, how does Coleridge differ from Wordsworth in his use of imagination?
While Wordsworth focuses on ordinary life and nature, Coleridge turns to the mysterious and supernatural. Both values imagination, but Coleridge imagination explores the unknown, the mystical, and the spiritual side of human experience. Next question.
My question is, what moral or philosophical message does Coleridge convey through the supernatural?
Coleridge uses the supernatural to show that guilt and moral mistakes are more frightened than external ghosts. That's all from my side. Thank you.
So good afternoon everyone. Myself Priya Rathod, and today's my presentation topic is Romanticism and the Cult of Nature, Wordsworth versus Coleridge. These are my academic details and presentation details. This is a table of contents. So my research question is that how do William Wordsworth and Coleridge, through their contrasting representation of nature in lyrical ballads and related works, construct divergent philosophical frameworks, one grounded in moral spiritual harmony and the other in imaginative transcendence, that together define the romantic cult of nature. Hypothesis: both Wordsworth and Coleridge revered nature as a sacred and transformative force. Their poetics diverge fundamentally in purpose and perception. Wordsworth envisions nature as a moral and restorative guide, fostering emotional stability and ethical awareness, whereas Coleridge presents nature as a mysterious, transcendental, transnatural entity reflecting the creative and often turbulent workings of the imagination. Together, their dialectical visions form a composite romantic ecology that anticipate modern critical thought, imbalancing emotional immersion and with philosophical inquiry. Let's begin with the introduction. The romantic embrace of nature was fundamentally a religious and political statement against the industrialization and the cold reason. Lyrical ballads codified two paths: Wordsworth's empirical observation and Coleridge's imaginative transformation. This divergence is crucial. It shows that the romantics did not speak with one voice on nature, anticipating the modern discussions about how we balance scientific truth of nature and with subjective power of human imagination. Wordsworth, nature is a moral and spiritual guide. Wordsworth sought a moral compass in nature, finding in its permanence a remedy for human folly. His idea that our passions become incorporated with nature suggests a stable symbiotic relationships. This vision is profoundly optimistic, offering a gospel of tranquility and moral uplift. It reminds us today that natural immersion is not merely recreation, but a fundamental requirement for a balanced and ethical human consciousness. Textual evidence: Wordsworth's Tinton Abbey. Tinton Abbey encapsulates Wordsworth's mature vision, a deeply emotional connection that matures into philosophical insights. The idea that nature can offer life and food for future years is not merely poetic. It presents nature as a sustainable spiritual resource. This emphasis on memory and internalized experience remains a powerful argument for preserving species, ensuring that future generations can inherit this vital store of restorative power. Apart from this, one of the famous line of Wordsworth's poem, "My heart leaps up when I behold the rainbow in the sky." This line shows us how the poet connects his life with nature. Coleridge, imagination, mystery, and the supernatural. Coleridge's nature is a far less comfortable than Wordsworth's view. It is a complex, luminous riddle. His imaginative lens focuses on how the mind projects a meaning onto the environment, creating a transnatural space where the physical and visionary merge. These psychotropic poetics, where the poets state determines the landscape's mood, offers a powerful contemporary powerful contemporary commentary on climate anxiety and how our internal crisis inevitably reflected in our perception of the external world. Textual evidence: Coleridge's The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. In this poem, the mariner is a masterclass in using nature's sublime terror in articulate moral philosophy. Unlike Wordsworth's benevolent landscape, here the nature is an unforgiving force that demands penance. This image of the albatross as a milestone perfectly captures the burden of ecological guilt. This poem speaks powerfully to a modern society grappling with climate change, serving as a powerful allegory for the severe consequences of disturbing natural economy. Philosophical divergence: the self and the sense of place. The fundamental difference is the relationship between self and the world. Wordsworth suggests that self is fulfilled by fulfilled by losing itself in natural unity. And whereas Coleridge asserts that self must actively engage its imagination to give nature meaning. This dual approach anticipates modern literary theory, where the stability of the natural world is always mediated by our subjective, cultural, and psychological framework, highlighting the limits of pure pantheistic faith. Modern reading, ecology, and transnaturalism. Uh, Eco-criticism confirms the poet's enduring relevance. Wordsworth's ecological language implies that our thoughts are born from the land. Coleridge's our thoughts are born from the land, demanding reverence for the oikos. Coleridge focuses on naming place shows the essential conversation between language and landscape. This reading moves beyond the scanning appreciation to understand their work as a pioneer calls for an acute awareness of the deep interconnectedness between human culture and the living earth. Comparative summary: moral guide versus luminous readers. For Wordsworth, nature is a benevolent, tranquil, and restorative moral guide, and the truth is found through passive sensory experience. While for Coleridge, nature is a mysterious, inspiring force, often sublime, severe, and a mirror for the mind. Truth is actively projected by the imagination. The divergence. Wordsworth is respective and incorporative, and while Coleridge is transformative and projective. This is the comparative table. We can see that nature's primary role, for Wordsworth's moral guide and restorative force is the primary role, and for Coleridge, mysterious agent and sublime force. Source of truth for Wordsworth's truth of nature, and for Coleridge, modifying colors of imagination. We can find elements of nature in the Wordsworth's famous poem Tintin Abbey, and also S.T. Coleridge's famous work Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Conclusion. The enduring legacy of the Wordsworth and Coleridge lies in their contemporary philosophies. Wordsworth gave us the hope for salvation through the nature's stability. Coleridge gave us the fear of separation from it. To address today's climate crisis, we need both Wordsworth's faith to inspire preservation and Coleridge's terrifying imagination to fully grasp the moral gravity of our destructive potential. Their dialogue is our modern ethical toolkit. Learning outcomes. Throughout the presentation, I got understanding of Wordsworth and Coleridge different view about nature, and I also understood Coleridge's view about imagination, and how the both the work Tintin Abbey and Rime of the Ancient Mariner different represent nature elements of nature and imagination. These are references. These are the key points throughout the presentation. Thank you. If anyone has any questions, they can feel to ask.
My question is, what shared legacy do Wordsworth and Coleridge leave for modern writers?
Wordsworth and Coleridge leave a legacy of seeing nature as a both source of emotional healing and imaginative insight. They teach modern readers to find harmony between the outer world of nature and inner world of thoughts and feelings. Any other questions?
My question is, how does Romanticism redefine the relationship between humans and nature?
Romanticism redefines the relationship between humans and nature by seeing nature as a living and spiritual force connected to human emotions, feelings, as well as imagination, not just a backdrop. It turns nature into a moral teacher and a source of inner harmony. Thank you. This is all from my side.
Uh, Good evening, everybody. Myself, Mulraj Gohil, and today my presentation topic, the poetic proof, how kids' diction in the ode on indolence embodies negative capabilities. This is my academic information. This is table of content. My research question of this particular presentation: how does kids' diction in ode on indolence embody demonstrate the principle of the negative capabilities? Hypothesis: kids' deliberate use of organic metaphor, contrastive diction, and the imagery of the self-contained passivity in ode on indolence consciously enacts negative capability, illustrating that true poetic creativity arises from the embracing uncertainty and resisting external pressure for the demonstrating achievement. Introduction. John Keats' Ode on Indolence explored the tension between the creative desire and the reflective stillness, often seen as a poem about laziness. It actually reveals Keats' deeper belief in negative capability and the ability to remain the calm and receptive amid uncertainty. Through the gentle diction, natural imaginary, and the contrast of emotion, Keats transformed indolence into a form of creative contemplation. The poem suggests that the true poetic insight arises not from rested effort, but from the quiet acceptance of the life's mysteries and rhythms. Poetic proof. The critical problem surrounding ode on indolence lies in the way critics often interpret it as evidence of the kid's incapacity for or disillusionment with the exercise of the poetic imagination. The research statement often referred to as the poetic proof emphasized that the ode on indolence stand as a triumphant expression of contented self-knowledge and the serve as a poetic reaffirmation of the kids concept of the negative capabilities. uh, Definition of the negative capabilities: the power to embrace uncertainty and the mystery without the needing clear answer. The key condition by John Keats: achieved without any irritable reaching after fact and reason. Poetic identity: the true poet is a chameleon poet, one of no fixed identity, able to absorb every emotion and idea, must subordinate the soul self to become a conductor of the all thoughts. Indolence as a creative passivity. According to Starr, uh, the state of indolence is not a sign of the creative stagnation, but a necessary condition that enables the poet to cultivate creative non-attachment, a mediative detachment that foster receptivity to experience the without interference of rational will. Uh, uh, Kit himself celebrate as a delicious, diligent indolence signifies ripeness in intellect, implying that intellectual maturity stems from the poised stillness rather than restless effort. This echoes the idea that authentic poetry should arise naturally without irritable reaching for control. Indolence as a medium for creative and intellectual engagement. A, a pertinent example of this concept can be found in the Keats' poem Ode on Indolence. In this work, a speaker describes a state of blissful indolence. This is a stanza, for example. Diction analysis, the stanza that we shown in previous slide. Idle days, drowsy hours suggest calm and contemplative time. Ripe implies intellectual and creative maturity. Benumbed pulse grew less, slow down perception and emphasize detachment. Pain had no sting, pleasures breath no flowers. This shows suspension from emotional extremes. Use of organic metaphor, phrase like the blissful cloud, summer indolence. The poet state to a living, enveloping natural entity, fluid, self-contained and receptive. This metaphor emphasizes poets' immersion in experience without exertion or rational imposition, aligning perfectly with the principle of negative capabilities. Metaphor analysis. Blissful cloud of summer indolence. Indolence as an enveloping dreamy experience. Pain had no sting and pleasures breath no flower. Neutralize ordinary sensation, exemplifies meditative detachment. Metaphor allows the poet to absorb experience without the judgment and reflecting negative capability. The use of contrastive diction. Keats also employs contrastive diction to highlight the suspension of the conventional emotional and intellectual response. Word and phrase such as pain had no sting and pleasures breath no flower. These both phrases are completely paradox by itself. Poised passivity. Keats' imagery of meditative stillness. Finally, Keats create imagery of self-contained passivity, portraying indolence not as a idleness in a pejorative sense, but a poised contemplative stillness, expressed like my pulse grew less and less, and ripe was the drowsy hour, convey a measured internalized rhythm of experience. Through this imagery, Keats exemplify the meditative detachment central to negative capability, a readiness to absorb impression and sensation and emotion without the forcing coherence or closure. This is for examples of the diction of contrast and duality. The biblical allusion. Keats' engagement with the human experience explore desire, temptation, and resignation through the reflective contemplative diction. Biblical allusion. Matthew's chapter number 6, verse number 28 to 29. Consider the lilies of the field, they toil not, neither do they spin. Highlight futility of the anxious striving and the nature's providence. Dictions reflecting the illusion, uses languid imagery, drowsy hour, a blissful cloud, summer indolence, evokes calm passivity and contemplative ease like lilies. Negative capability, embrace uncertainty and ambiguity without forcing resolution. Keats suspends ambition, allowing the ambiguity to shape the poem. Indolence as an intellectual ripeness. By Keats, a poetic maturity comes from the natural reflection, not forced reasoning. Indolence means meditative detachment enabling receptivity, and aligns with the star's view of the creative non-attachment. Learning outcomes. Keats' diction and metaphor in Ode on Indolence embody negative capability. Language create a meditative receptive state, allowing poetry to arise originally, organically. True creativity emerges from the stillness, contemplation, and the openness to uncertainty. These are reference. Thank you. Uh, Questions are most welcome.
So my question is that what does kids mean by diligent indolence?
It signifies richness in intellectual, implying that the intellectual maturity and true poetic insight come from the poised stillness rather than uh, restless effort. Next question.
My question is, what is the specific Bible verse kids' theme of effortless creation alludes to?
The theme alludes Matthew's chapter number 6, verse number 28 to 29. Consider the lilies of the land; they toil not, neither they spin. This highlight the futility of the anxious striving and reinforce the idea of the contemplative ease. Thank you. This is from my side.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sagar Chawda. My presentation topic is Without Irritable Reaching Kids and Negative Capability. These are my academic and presentation details. This is the table of contents, research question and hypothesis. My research question is, how does negative capability function as more than a psychological state, evolving into a coherent ethical and aesthetic principle that governs kids' poetic language and his conception of the artist's role in the world? My hypothesis is, kids' negative capability is an active artistic discipline requiring the separation of the self to achieve a deeper, more empathetic understanding of reality. This principle is not only visible as a theme in his major points, but is structurally embedded in his diction and syntax, representing a deliberate ethical choice to favor objective beauty and sympathetic engagement over the assertion of a dogmatic, subjective truth. Introduction: Keats' philosophy of uncertainty. It is more than a mood. It is not merely a passive state of doubt, but an active, disciplined artistic practice. It requires the poet to negate their own personality to achieve a more profound and objective perception of the world. The foundational movement, a letter to his brother. This is the letter where negative capability emerged, and in this letter, John Keats wrote to his brothers, and in which he wrote, "At once it struck me what quality went to form a man of achievement." By this, a man of achievement, he particularly mean William Shakespeare, in literature, and which Shakespeare possessed so enormously. I mean negative capability. This is where he mentioned the term for the first time. That is, this is what he mean by negative capability. That is, when man is capable of being in uncertainties, mysteries, doubts, without any irritable reaching after fact and reason. He describes several qualities that go to form a man of achievement, especially in literature. In chief of which was negative capability. The Shakespearean idol. For kids, William Shakespeare was the ultimate exemplar of this quality. He saw Shakespeare as possessing a chameleon nature, able to inhabit a vast range of human experience without imposing his own personality or moral judgments. That we can see in the plays of William Shakespeare, that he many times and creates many characters that are still relevant today, but most of them and all of them uh, described different characteristics and psychological traits. A man of achievement, which is the egotistical sublime. Keats implicitly contrasts his ideal man of achievement with the poetry of his contemporary William Wordsworth. This is Keats' term for a poetic mode where the powerful, subjective self of the poet dominates the poem. In this mode, the world is filtered through and moralized by the poet's lens rather than being presented in its own objective reality. That is the most important question and perspective that William Shakespeare uh, does not have, and William Wordsworth has. He presents his own views of nature in his poetry, whereas Shakespeare do not identify himself with any of his characters. So these are two modes of creation. This contrast establishes two fundamentally different approaches to art. One that projects the self into the world, just like Wordsworth, and one that allows the world to impress itself upon a negated, receptive self, just as Keats and Shakespeare. From theory to words, these are some of the examples of uh, words of John Keats, in which he used his term, in which he applied his term negative capability. In Ode to a Nightingale, Ode to a Grecian Urn, the Urn's ambiguous proclamation are some of the examples. Poetic manifestation, the diction of doubt. Language of uncertainty. Keats' poetic style is structurally built on the principle of negative capability. Nathan Comfort Starr's analysis reveals a poetic diction rich with words that create ambiguity, half states, and unresolved paradoxes. Key lexical fields. In most of Keats' poems are filled with words such as half, shadow, dream, never, no, nor, and fading, like pale, faded, and dissolves, that suspend certainty. Syntax of suspension. The very grammar of his sentences often holds the reader in a state of supervision. Long, complex clauses can delay the final resolution of a thought, mirroring the speaker's own immersion in mystery rather than a drive toward a conclusion. As Starr concludes, the stylistic habit and the abstract concept are of one piece. Keats' use of negative language is not a rhetorical trick, but the inevitable result of a mind that finds its deepest truths in the exploration of complexity, not in its resolution. The ethical dimensions, empathy and objectivity, beyond aesthetic to morality. Negative ability is not a profound ethical stance. Linda von Fell argues that it involves a moral commitment to empathetic understanding, moving beyond a purely artistic theory, in which the inhalation of selfishness is most required. By neglecting the irritable ego, the poet can fully and sympathetically enter into the experience of others, whether human or non-human. This self-inhalation is an ethical act of making space for the others. This empathetic immersion allows art to serve a therapeutic function. The artist becomes a healer, not by offering simplistic cures or moral lessons, but by bearing honest witness to the pain, joy, and complexity of the human condition. Ultimately, negative capability proposes an ethics of receptivity over assertion. It argues that the most moral artistic act is to present the world in its true mysterious complexity, trusting the reader to find their own meaning. A critical reassessment: was negative capability enough? Here, in the later years of his life, John Keats came up with a new theory which he called the well of soul making. That contrast with his previous theory of negative capability, in which the need of knowledge and identity is required. As R.T. Davis's reassessment of the letters suggests that Keats later felt a pressing need for a more extensive knowledge and a stable philosophical identity, moving away from the pure, selfless chameleon ideal. This is the conclusion. While Keats himself may have wrestled with its sufficiency, his internal struggle between passive receptivity, that is, in negative capability, and active identity formation in the well of soul making is precisely what gives his poetry its extraordinary depth and dynamism. These are my references. These are my learning outcomes. Thank you. If anyone has any question.
So my question is that how did Keats' negative capability differ from Coleridge's politic approach?
In this presentation, we might not have discussed Coleridge, but in Keats, he specifically referred to Coleridge as the one who does not follow the principles of negative capability, in which he says, John Keats says that Samuel Taylor Coleridge irritably reaches after facts and reason, and he preaches and follows more philosophical and moralized approach in his poetics rather than the ability to being being in certainty with his fact and reasons. Next question, if anyone. NIDHIBEN.
What is the primary difference between the concept of negative capabilities and the wells of soul making?
In 1819, John Keats wrote another letter to his brother and sister-in-law, in which he described the concept of the well of soul making, in which he says that he comes out from his own self, which he was in the concept of negative capability, and he says that the way we see the world is different in the well of soul making than we see in the negative capability. Negative capability is mostly related to language and artistic purposes, but in the well of soul making, it is more about philosophical approach to life and the way we see the world. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah. Am I audible? Okay, so good evening, everyone. Now it's time of the final remarks for today's presentation in the noon session. So let's begin with the first presenter, Nidhi Pandya. Good presentation topic that you have selected. You presented on this black matrix. Okay, so good presentation. But you did one mistake again in we can say the very minor one, that you have not, we can say, the arrange your citation in the alphabetical order. So that mistake you done. So just try to, we can say, edit your slide, and again then you have to upload. Fine. Otherwise, your presentation was good, well presented, and again, you have also answered well. Then Mansi, again, well answered, good presentation. Okay. On Pride and Prejudice, market and this matrimony and all these things. Okay, so well explained, good presentation. Radhika, when you prepare the presentation, so first slide should be your title, then your academic details and table of contents, all these things. You have first slide with the, we can say, the image of that Pride and Prejudice, and then about the Jane Austen. Then you can put out your information. So Jane Austen information came later on. Okay, you can say in the third or fourth slide. So, these have you have to manage the, we can say, first, second, third slide. Okay, so that order you have to follow. That you have to edit, otherwise presentation was good, but just try to focus more on the explanation rather than reading. Okay, so work on the explanation skill. Okay, and you can do with the practice. Okay. One again, one mistake in your presentation that the main text citation was missing. We cannot find it out Pride and Prejudice in your citation. So that you have to wait. Okay. When you talk about the Pride and Prejudice, so how we can put that text? So first we have to add that new source, then other sources you have to, that sources which you have referred for your presentation, that we have to add. Okay, so that two three things you have, we can say, add it, okay, in your presentation. Sandhya, don't read much. Okay, just try to, we can say, explain what you have prepared. Okay, because now we understand, we know that what we have prepared. Okay, so you can explain in your own words. Okay, line by line, there is no need to read. Fine. Again, you have the same thing. Okay, you have not arranged your resources in alphabetical order. Just try to check only. Okay, and edit that. Again, the same mistake, main text citation also not found. Pride and Prejudice in your presentation. Also that is missing. Check that. Sanjay, on emotional social relationship with Pride and Prejudice, a well prepared presentation. Again, main text citation missing. Pride and Prejudice. Later on we will discuss if it is there, then we will check. Again, when you give answer at that time, try to speak orally. Okay, we know that you have answers with you. Okay, you know the questions in advance as well. But things that at least we can remember two answers. Okay, based on our presentation. So just try to, we can say, speak orally. It looks good. Otherwise, presentation was good. Siddharth, good topic. Siddharth and CHAUHAN, marriage, media, and misogyny. Well prepared, well explained presentation, good confidence. Again, you have added learning outcomes as well as summary of your whole presentation. You have also added. But I can find out one problem in the last citation in your citation. Last article is not in English language. I found some other language that I cannot read. Okay, so that you have to check, and for that particular word mistake you lost the mark. Otherwise, the chances you will get is a full marks. Okay, the way you present really good, but that article later on we will discuss and check. Okay, I can't read, but maybe if you can. Again, main section is missing. Which four text? In general. Okay, later on again I'll discuss with you. SIDDHIBA on feminine ideals in Pride and Prejudice and Jane Eyre. Again, a good presentation, good comparative study you did. Okay, but last two citations I couldn't open, so that again we'll have to check. First I can open, that is your main text citation, that is good. Again, just try to work on explanation rather than reading. Okay, so otherwise presentation was good. Vanita on Pride and Prejudice again, well answered. You try to, we can say, answer orally based on your understanding and clarity. That is good. Again, main text citation I didn't find it out in your presentation. You also added learning outcomes, which is good. And I think I couldn't find gesture article in your presentation, or you can say not from these Taylor and Sons. Okay, all from the academia and the research. So if you can find it out the authentic one, I am not telling that the articles are not authentic, but if you can find it out more with the authentic, then it is good. So just try to we can say add 1 or 2 articles from there as well. Otherwise, good presentation. Grishma, again a very good topic. Again, this Frankenstein, Doppelgänger motif in the Prejudice. Okay, that again you have also mentioned that have your research questions in the hypothesis justified at the end. That is also good. You have learning outcomes as well. And again, you have explained well that what I find it out throughout my presentation. And good articles also you have added. So well done. Kruti, again, good presentation, answered well. Okay. Yeah. In your citation, in the first and the second sources, I cannot find it out the author's name. Only the link with the article title is there. Okay, so that you have find it, author's name I cannot find it out, so that you have added that. Priyanka, good against the presentation compared to the last. Okay, I can find it out improvement in your presentation, even in your speech as well. Okay, so good try. Again, this article we have cited well, pathological grief in medical practicing and Charles Dickens, a pastoral psychological perspective that link academic open. Okay, so that you have to check again. Again, while answering, don't read. Okay, the strategy give answers based on your own understanding. Okay, they don't understand from your presentation, and in brief, you can just explain. Siddharth ji. Again, need to work explanation. I am happy that first time I heard your voice. Okay, but just try to we can say work on speaking skill as well as reading skill. Okay, and be confident. Okay, I cannot find out research question and hypothesis in the present. You have learned outcomes, that is good. But these 2 things were missing. So you have to add that, okay, before uploading the presentation on SlideShare. Okay. Otherwise, good try. Mittal on Coleridge poetry, good presentation, well answered. Again, I can find out good citation, everything was good. Priya, presentation was good, but I found 2 or 3 spelling errors in the slide of the key points that you have prepared. Okay. In which I think 3 spelling errors. So just try to edit that. The presentation was good. And speak loudly. Okay. While presenting the things. Mulraj, again good topic. Negative capability in or to or on individuals. Well answered as well. Okay. A good try. And the last one, Sagar. Again, a very interesting topic, okay, on negative capability and kids. And personally, I like the learning outcomes. Okay, when I read all these learning outcomes, we truly feel that you observe so many good things, and it's truly we can say based on your can say the ideas that you have reflected in that particular slide. So well explained as well, well answered, and good presentation. So that is the thing. Okay. We are ending this session, noon session here. Thank you all of you.